have a thesis per se, but reading it, and now, and a lot of women have liked it, and it's the only thing I wrote that my mother liked. My mother said, yes, this is good. Now you're on the right track. It was that women are engaged in the work of making society, of making children, that it's an enormous job, and that the separation between women and men is harmful to all of us. After I wrote A Woman's Place, you know, I remembered a lot of things writing this or getting this anthology together. I remember walking into a neighbor's house and all her children's clothes were lined up, were hanging from a line that she'd put in her living room. And I said, I thought she'd gone mad. And I said, you know, what is this about? She said, I'm selling them. I said, what? She said, if I don't get any money of my own, I'm going to go crazy. So I'm selling all the clothes that the children have grown out of. And that stayed with me, you know, always. And I understood, you know, that we needed money of our own without having to go out to work and do the double day and all the rest. And that was an important part of what was in my mind when I wrote A Woman's Place. And it's still very important in my mind.
And then talk about the organizing you did and coining this phrase, unwaged work.
Well, when the new women's movement burst out in the early 1970s in England, I thought, oh, well, they will be way ahead of where I was, and I must go to learn and all the rest. And they were in many respects, but they still had not grappled with the housework. They still had not grappled with that lack of financial independence and how crucial that was. And they had a very peculiar notion of what this work is. They said women will go out to work as if it was some liberation to go out to work. They clearly, the work that they were thinking of doing was not the work that I had done of wiring and soldering and in the machine shop getting very dirty trying to make holes in metal. You know, they had never done or didn't know about the kind of work that most women did who went out to work, who were working class women. And so I had to find out a number of things. I had to find out how to tell them about the lives of most women, which they didn't seem to know about. And I also had to work out what was the role of women in relation to capitalism. What were we doing, you know, that made our work so essential? And I had just been reading Capital in a study group because I just wanted to find out what the guy said by myself, Karl Marx. And he had said that we sell our labor power to capitalism. And I said, labor power? But women make labor power. And why haven't they told me this? Because I thought all the Marxists knew this and had neglected to mention it to me. That was my first thought. And then I realized that they had never understood that women produce the whole labor force and that that work is not acknowledged and not even considered as work. It's like, what did you do all day was a very popular way that men would greet women when they came home from real work. And so we then, you know, talked about the unwaged work that women were doing. That is, you got some payment. You got your food and board if you were a housewife, but you didn't have the autonomy of money, which ensured that everybody knew you were working and which gave you the independence of having money of your own. But that was really only the beginning, because